Mark Zuckerberg and the Gala night meltdown, as witnessed by an onlooker. That night was strictly invite-only. Inside the historic New York Museum of Art, some of the most prestigious names from the worlds of technology and media had gathered. The gala was themed around merging technology with art and raising funds. I was there thanks to a press badge, just a small figure among giants. But what I saw, it was beyond anything I expected. At around 9:30 p.m., as guests sipped their champagne in the grand hall, someone quietly stepped through the doors. He wore a classic black suit without a tie. The only one in the room without one. Yes, it was him, Mark Zuckerberg. He walked in slowly, unnoticed at first. But as a few heads turned, whispers spread across the hall. "Zuckerberg's here." "Wow, we're seeing him live." But something felt off. His face wasn't its usual blank expression. He wasn't neutral. He looked tense. Two people walked alongside him, likely his assistant and a young woman from his PR team. He didn't speak. As he made his way through the hall, a staff member quietly approached and whispered something to him. I couldn't hear it. But from that moment, the atmosphere changed. Mark stopped. His expression hardened. Then he turned to his assistant and raised his voice. "Why is my name still written incorrectly at an event this ridiculous?" The room froze for a second. His assistant leaned in, trying to explain. "Mark, maybe it's just a small print error. Nothing major." But Mark quickly raised the brochure in his hand. "No, this is not nothing. This is my name. I've spent years teaching people how data defines identity. And you can't even get mine right?" Some guests tried to look away. I stood there with a glass of champagne frozen in place. Right in front of me, a tech giant was having a very human moment. A staff member stepped forward, trying to clarify. "Sir, the posters are already being reprinted. The event team has issued an apology." But Zuckerberg didn't stop. "This isn't just about a poster. It's about representation. It's about respect. It's carelessness." Just then, the music stopped. The soft jazz in the background cut off abruptly. The host was preparing to step onto the stage, but all eyes were now on the unfolding drama. His PR manager stepped in. "Mark, there are cameras. Please, let's handle this privately." Zuckerberg nodded slightly, but his tone stayed sharp. "No, this isn't private. It's a public mistake. I'm correcting it publicly. If a simple gala can't be organized properly, how are these people fit for the future of tech?" A few guests quietly began leaving the hall. Some pulled out their phones, though none dared to film. And me, I just stood there, watching. At that moment, I asked myself, is this really Mark Zuckerberg? Or just a man finally cracking under pressure? The PR team immediately rushed to control the situation. The host stepped onto the stage and began speaking, but no one was really paying attention. The only thing echoing in people's minds was Mark Zuckerberg's outburst. But the story didn't end there. Mark took a few steps, then suddenly changed direction and walked out through the grand glass doors of the hall. The night air was chilly. A breeze swept his jacket gently. He stood still for a moment, breathing deeply, hands tucked into his pockets. His face showed not just anger but disappointment. The head of his PR team quietly followed him out. She said nothing, just stood beside him. Mark looked up at the sky and exhaled. "It's happening again," he said. "Every time something goes wrong, people call it just a small mistake. But small mistakes build up. If my name is a brand, then every letter should be correct. That's how people show respect for what I represent." She lowered her head. "You're right. But all eyes are on you now. Is this how you want to be remembered tonight? Let's go back in, give a short speech. A thank you, maybe? Something to ease the room." Mark paused for a moment, then shook his head slowly. "No, I'm not speaking tonight. If I start talking, I'll say much more than I should. And maybe the world isn't ready for some truths yet." Just then, his assistant appeared, holding a new copy of the corrected brochure. "Mark, it's been fixed. They changed all the prints in the hall. Took them only 5 minutes. They worked really hard." Mark glanced at it. This time, his name was spelled correctly, but his anger hadn't disappeared. 5 minutes, sure. But in those 5 minutes, I was made to look foolish in front of 1,000 people. Systems may forgive, but minds don't forget that fast. The PR manager remained calm. "But what about the impression you've left? If people remember you tonight only as the man who lost his temper, who really wins?" Those words made Mark pause. his show. Shoulders dropped slightly. His expression remained firm, but something in his eyes changed. Just a little. I got angry because I care. Someone who doesn't care wouldn't react like this. They can criticize me, fine, but at least let them understand what I was truly angry about. The short, intense conversation between them played out. In stark contrast to the buzz of the gala inside, the wind outside felt like it was cooling something inside him. Slowly, he turned. He looked once more at the entrance to the hall. Maybe he thought of going back in. But then, he shook his head again. No. Tonight, the stage isn't mine, but I've left my message. He started walking. Staff moved quickly, guiding him toward a waiting car. The doors opened. And just like that, Mark Zuckerberg left the gala quietly, but not without leaving a mark. I was still inside the building, but my thoughts were out there with him. Some people leave a mark with a speech on stage. Others do it with a single look or an outburst of anger. In some moments, they may never make it into the history books, but they're etched into memory forever. That night was one of those moments. Thank you for watching. We love sharing the most unexpected and untold stories of well-known figures with you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next story. Take care.